I'm not at all sure when this drought started, but I think it was about 3 months ago. And so far, we have managed to keep our vegetables growing, at least those that don't get burned up in the heat. And the fish and the geese, well, the fish we had to harvest some because there were getting to be a lot of them. And this morning I got another goose egg, so they're apparently doing okay. But as you can see from this little movie I'm making, the rest of the yard where we haven't watered every day is very definitely brown. And it's not supposed to be. We live in a tropical rainforest. There's one of our dogs in the background. That was Chaco. He be a Heinz 57, but he yaps real good if somebody tries to get in the yard. Now I'm just going to move this down a bit because I've already got the pictures I want. So we'll move that down. Okay. And now we'll move it over just a little bit. There you go. And I'll center that just a shade better. There you That's looking pretty good right there. Okay, folks. We'll leave it there. I mean, that pretty much is the penultimate look. It's a drought shot. You can see a little bit of green in the background. Very little. But mostly you see brown. And yes, I know we're supposed to be greeners here, but that is a plastic pot. Practicality comes in. To get clay pots for everything would cost me a year's worth of income. And we can't afford that. Simple, really. Now, I'm just going to sort of meander on. Well, that is about level, I guess. Well, it's close enough. If I mess with it, it'll just bounce things around and look ugly. This morning, This morning at about 9 o'clock, we lost power. Now, here's the situation. We're in a drought. The temperature for the last 3 months has been steadily, if slowly, climbing. And this week we have been hitting heat indexes of 40 centigrade. That's the top one we've got. But it's warm out there, folks. And of course, it is simply the time. So Noreko, which is our power company, sends out crews to clear the right-of-way so their lines don't get hit by falling trees or falling bamboo or even on occasion a falling coconut and cause power outages that they gotta come out and fix at awkward times. So this morning at 9 o'clock when the power went off, I said to myself, actually I didn't say to myself, I said to my lady, "What time is it?" And she said 9. I said, "We'll get the power back at 4. And that's what it looks like. Noreko's out clearing the line so that we don't have a power outage. Of course, it's catch-22. We got to have a power outage so we don't have a power outage, if that makes any sense to you. But it's worthwhile. And they start at 9 and they end at 4 so that all their workers get a chance to get where they're supposed to be. None of them start before 9 o'clock. And then none of them work after 4 o'clock. They just go home. And that's because during Odette, the super typhoon that's hit us, I'm having trouble talking today. No, not because I'm drunk, because I've got MS, which is really about the same effect right now in my life. But when Odette came and they had a lot of people out there doing line work that weren't really qualified for it, 1 or 2 got electrocuted. So now they're very careful about power on, power off type stuff, which is good. And Milady and I both agreed this morning If it's a choice between having no power and no water, we're going to go with no power every time. We've got water to keep the vegetables growing. We got water to keep the fish going and the geese. We got water to excuse this little dive into true humanity. We got water to flush the toilet. And that's important. Yeah, there's some guy that did a hierarchy of needs. Maslow? That sounds about right, but don't bet your soul on it. He's a psychiatrist type person, and he had an order of needs that he thought everybody followed. I'm not quite sure where he put water on that order, but I hope it was near the top, because it sure is when you don't have it, or when you have to pack it. And I've done that too since we moved to the Philippines. And that's not easy. I imagine the first major investment we made into our house, bamboo house, as we were constructing it, was to get a water tank to hold the water, so that we didn't have to rely on what was in the line. Well, since then the line's been fixed and upgraded, and people from downtown, they call it the spaghetti system, but we call it water, and we're happy. We don't care if it looks funny. But it's plastic pipe instead of cast iron pipe or whatever type of metal they use. But it does work nicely. But on days like summer hot heat days like today, and yesterday, it was so hot that when I turned the water on, now we only got one tap because we don't have a water heater, except in the shower. But when I turned the tap on in the sink, I had to wait for the water to run past where it was on the part of the pipe that was out in the sun. And some of our pipe, not much, is still in the sun. It was so hot I couldn't put my hand under it. That's hot. But it does clean dishes nicely. And then when I had my shower, it's an instant electric water heater, or an electric instant heat water heater, however you're supposed to say it. And it comes with 3 temperature settings. Usually I have it on 3 because I like a hot shower. I'm an old Canadian, what can I say? But yesterday it was so hot and my body temperature was so high that I knew I needed the low stuff. So I put it on 1 thinking that'll give me a nice cool shower. And with these electric water heaters, the instant ones, if the less water pressure you have, the slower the water runs, so the hotter the water becomes. That makes sense if you think about it. But we had lots of pressure yesterday, or enough. And for us, enough is lots, by the way. Even on 1, the lowest temperature setting, the water was getting too hot to stand under, so I turned the water tank, the hot water tank, just off. And then the water got just slightly less than body temperature. And I sat down and I let it run over my head. Yeah, I sat down, I'm old. I've got MS, which robs you of balance. I've got a few other nasty things, including, well, it don't matter what. But they make drying yourself standing up in a shower awkward. So I have a chair in the shower stall, and I've got hand irons around the side of it so I can grab on. And I sat down and I let that cool water run over my head. And then I adjusted it so I could let the hot water run into my armpits, another place where there's lots and lots of blood vessels. And of course, eventually I ended up running cool water into my crotch. That's where there's a real bunch of blood vessels, which don't do me much good anymore, by the way, but that's another story. But by the time I got out of that shower, I had lowered my core temperature enough to be comfortable for a while. And that's important. when the temperature gets near 40. You want to keep your core body temperature as low as you can, which means cold lunches. I mean out of the fridge cold. Cold rice, cold noodles, cold meat, cold fish, cold vegetables, and then it's in your stomach and it cools down the rest of your body. And that's a help. Now, what time is it on this? 10 minutes and 29, 30 seconds? That's probably just about long enough. Did see a blue jay around lately, a couple of them, and they usually nest in this part of the mountain. We've got some of the last natural green around, so they like to hide in our bamboo and our sort of little wilderness that we have in the back. And to the side of us, there's another little wilderness. So we get the kingfishers, and we get the wak-wak birds. That's what they call them here. I think they believe they're evil spirits. They are the size of a small eagle or a big hawk, but the body is maybe half a meter long, foot and a half, something like that. But the tail, which is either black or dark brown feathers, are as long as 2 feet. The tail's almost double the length of the body on a full-grown one. So they don't fly very well, and they don't fly very much, but they do hop from branch to branch and tree to tree, which is unusual. And then they've got this sort of sound. So they call them quack-quacks. And because they're unusual, they did the Jewish line of thinking. Oh, I know. Anti-Semitism, he's talking about Jews. Oh, no, it's not anti-Semitism. It's just my understanding of how it may have happened. If you look at the food they say you shouldn't eat, it's food that doesn't make any sense. Lobster. They don't look like they should be underwater. They got shells and tails. They look like sort of a big scorpion, and that doesn't make sense. Pigs you're not supposed to eat, cloven hoof. Well, that's just scientifically a fact. If you live where there's not really good cooking and antibiotics, you want to watch what you eat, and a pig isn't high on your list because there's a lot of nasty things that grow in a pig if it's not cured and eaten just right. Now, the Jewish system was smart, but part of it was based on what don't look right, don't touch. And actually, that's kind of the theology that ran my life for a while. I was a pilot for a while. I hereby acknowledge and admit that I was not as good as my brother became. I was better than him at the start, but when he went and flew famine relief in and out of some really small airstrips, he's a man now. I'm 73, he's going to be 76. He learned how to fly a twin otter. I think it was a twin otter he was flying on wheels in and out of some really hairy landing strips. And I hereby acknowledge he's a better pilot than I am, or was, come the end of it. But there's an old pilot saying, and I'm going to clean it up a bit, but you'll get the idea. When in doubt, get the hell out. And always make sure you know how to get back to where you knew where you were. That way you never get lost, you just get misplaced. And both of those are actually pretty good advice for leading a normal, good life, if you think about it. You don't have to think about it, but think about it if you will. 14 minutes, okay. Yeah, you get it. Still drought. Now the Weather Bureau says we are entering the wet season. That used to mean cool season. That is yet to be proved one way or another this year. I know that wet season means that we're going to have a lot more water in the pipes. Now you got to understand, our water system goes from 5 or 6 kilometers in a straight line up the mountain from where we are, and 14 kilometers by road down to Dumaguete, which is a major city. And below us is the holding tank. The water comes from the mountain stream, and there's only 1 or 2 of them. There ain't a lot. And they're deep streams, but they drilled down, got them, and it flows into a holding tank, it settles out, and then it rolls down to the city, flows down to the city. But we live above the holding tank, which means our line is directly into the line that feeds the holding tank, which is good when you got lots of water falling from the skies. But in a 3-month drought, all of our farmers and all of the people up here are using more and more water to cool off, to clean, to water the garden. And there is a finite amount of water in our system. And the more we use, the less everybody has to use below you. And there's a fair number of people above us now. Didn't used to be, but there is now. So during a drought, we still get water, but it's cut by about 50% at this point. Don't know what it'd be like if it went for another month or 2. But once it starts to rain, then the farmers don't have to water their fields. And people collect water off roofs and other things like that. So there's less water being taken out of the pipe, and we'll have a lot more water pressure again. Not that we've gone without, thank the gods. We haven't. It's gone low, but we haven't gone without. We've been very, I refuse to say blessed, because for the life of me, and this be a fact, folks, I can't figure out why the gods would bless me. I'm not that good a person. And truth be told, either is my wife. Neither of us are. We're just sort of regular folks, and we try to live what we believe, but we're not no saints. We're not saints, either of us. So I suggest we have been lucky rather than blessed. But in any case, what am I doing here? Oh, okay, there you go, 1748. It's going to take me a while to load that up. I'm not going to make this a fancy one and go into my other stuff and put on beginning and endings and music. I'm just going to leave it the way it is, because I'm not thinking that well lately. So there you go, folks. Have a good one. Bruce, you're in this one. I hope you don't mind. And for all those people out there that consider themselves my friends and my kith and kin, I do love you one and all. I don't know that I ever showed it properly, but I do. You take care, and though we won't see each other in this world unless something strange happens, who knows the next time around. Bye-bye. I said bye-bye, and now I gotta figure out how to turn this thing off. Okay, I remember. I pushed the movie button. So there you go. Bye-bye, folks.